Did you know that during the 2020 market crash, when everyone else was panic selling stocks and hoarding toilet paper, America's 600-plus billionaires collectively got $434 billion richer? Yeah. While the world was stress-baking banana bread, they were out here printing wealth like it was Black Friday at the stock exchange. And no, it's not because billionaires have some kind of magical money-summoning spell. It's because they've learned something the rest of us haven't. Market crashes aren't just disasters. They're clearance sales for the rich. Let me introduce you to Charles. We love Charles. Charles is a regular guy. He works hard, pays his bills, and dabbles in investing. But the second the market starts looking like a horror movie, red everywhere, reporters screaming about recessions, Charles freaks out. He opens his investing app, sees his portfolio down 30% and thinks, I've made a terrible mistake. So he sells. Charles wants to feel safe again. He moves everything into cash, then waits for the market to calm down. Meanwhile, across town, in a suspiciously quiet penthouse with a koi pond in the bathroom, Janet, the billionaire, is doing the exact opposite. Janet sees the market crash, raises one eyebrow and says, "Oh, things just got interesting." Because Janet knows something Charles doesn't. Fear creates opportunity. When prices drop on stocks, real estate, businesses, it's not just destruction, it's a discount. Let's say there's a company, Choco Fizz, that makes gourmet chocolate soda. Gross, but stay with me. When times are good, the stock price is $100. But then a recession hits. People panic. Everyone dumps their shares. Now Choco Fizz is trading at 50, even though it's still selling drinks and making money. Charles sees $50 and screams, "It's crashing! Sell it all!" Janet sees $50 and says, "Sweet, half off." She buys a ton. And when the market eventually recovers, because it almost always does, those shares go back up. Now they're worth $100 again. Janet just doubled her money while Charles was stress-scrolling Twitter and hiding his cash under a mattress. And here's where it gets wild. Janet didn't even use her own money. Nope. She borrowed it. Because rich people don't just buy assets, they leverage them. Let's rewind a bit. Before the crash, Janet had a $100 million portfolio. She didn't sell it. She used it as collateral. Went to her private banker and said, "I'd like a $20 million loan to go shopping. Something classy, like distressed assets and underpriced stocks." Banker says, "Of course, Janet. Would you like that in briefcases or wire transfer?" Now Janet is scooping up high-quality stocks at fire sale prices, using borrowed money backed by the assets she didn't panic sell. Her portfolio bounces back. The stuff she bought at $50 is now $100, and she made millions without selling anything or paying taxes up front. Meanwhile, Charles is back in the market, but now everything's expensive again. So he ends up buying high and selling low. The exact opposite of what you're supposed to do. It's like Charles went to the store and said, "Nah, I don't want the shoes when they're 50% off. I'll wait till they're full price and then grab 5 pairs. Classic Charles. Now let's zoom out. Crashes don't just affect stocks. They shake up everything. Real estate, startups, even entire industries. Janet knows this. That's why, when a crisis hits, she doesn't just look at her portfolio. She looks at the whole chessboard. Vacant commercial buildings? She buys them cheap and rents them out. Small businesses struggling? She acquires them, gives them some capital, and owns a bigger piece of the pie. Tech startups running out of funding? She invests at low valuations and waits for the rebound. Every crash is like a buy one get one free sale on wealth-building assets. And Janet? She has a shopping list ready before the crash even happens. Because billionaires aren't reactive. They're prepared. They know the cycle. Markets go up, markets go down, people freak out. And the people who don't freak out? They win. Let's take it back to the Great Recession in 2008. Warren Buffett, aka the guy who literally wrote the book on this stuff, invested billions during the panic. He threw money into companies like Goldman Sachs and General Electric when everyone else was running for the hills. Why? Because he had cash ready. He famously said, "Be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful." Translation: if everyone's running out of the building, check if there's anything valuable they left behind. Billionaires get richer during crashes because they do 3 things differently. They stay calm. They know the news makes everything sound 10x worse than it is. They have cash or access to credit. That's their dry powder, ready to deploy when the market goes on clearance. They think long-term. While Charles is sweating over his next paycheck, Janet is looking 5, 10, 20 years ahead. Even if her new investments drop more tomorrow, she knows recovery is a matter of when, not if. And remember, time favors the patient. That's why billionaires love recessions. They're like gardeners who've been waiting for rain. When the storm hits, they're not worried about getting wet. They're planting seeds, and later, they harvest big. But wait, there's more. Janet doesn't just buy cheap assets. She uses the crash to renegotiate everything. She gets better deals on labor, better terms with suppliers, cheaper leases, more favorable contracts. Even the stuff she already owns, she uses the downturn to optimize it. She lays off unnecessary expenses, tightens operations, streamlines her empire. So when the economy bounces back, and it always does, she's leaner, stronger, and more profitable than before. Meanwhile, Charles, he's cautiously tiptoeing back into the market, just in time to buy everything after the prices have already doubled. Oof, but here's the kicker. You don't need billions to think like Janet. You just need a plan. You don't panic. You build an emergency fund. You stay invested, even during the ugly times. And when the market dips, you see it for what it is, a limited-time sale on the future. Because the secret isn't timing the market. It's spending less time freaking out about it. Now let's be real. Crashes aren't fun. Even Janet has moments where she stares at the red numbers on her screen and sighs dramatically into her espresso. But the difference is, she doesn't let the fear drive the car. She lets the math do that. And the math says, historically, the market always recovers. Sometimes it takes months, sometimes years. But every single time the market has crashed, it's eventually gone higher than before. Imagine if you bailed out of a roller coaster the moment it started dropping. That's Charles. Janet. She's strapped in, hands up, eyes wide, yelling, "Wee!" because she knows the dip is just part of the ride. Let's circle back to Charles for a second. Poor Charles is still trying to figure out why every time he sells during a crash and buys back later, he somehow ends up with less money. He thinks the market is rigged. And in a way, it kind of is. Rigged in favor of people who understand cycles, patience, and how wealth compounds. Janet uses the crash to buy more shares at a discount, so when recovery hits, her gains are supercharged. Charles waits until everything feels safe again. But by then, the prices are already back up, and he's missed the upside. Think of it like this. Imagine two people go to an empty ice cream shop during a snowstorm. Janet walks in and the shop owner says, "No one's buying right now. I'll give you 10 scoops for the price of 2. Janet's response? "Love that for me." Charles walks in 3 months later when it's sunny again, the shop is packed, and everyone's paying full price. Now he's mad the ice cream costs more. That's investing in a nutshell. Here's another thing Janet does during crashes. She buys influence. When companies are struggling, they need capital. Janet comes in like a financial superhero, buys a big stake, gets a seat on the board, and suddenly, she's not just an investor, she's a decision maker. That's how the ultra-wealthy build empires during chaos. They don't just survive crashes, they expand during them. They scoop up competitors, buy land on the cheap, take advantage of falling prices in industries that will bounce back strong. And when the dust settles, they're positioned better than ever. Meanwhile, Charles is still recovering from the emotional trauma of watching his portfolio dip 30%. And look, we're not picking on Charles. Most people are Charles. Because school never taught us how to build wealth. It taught us how to memorize the mitochondria as the powerhouse of the cell, but not how to handle a red day in the market without eating 6 stress muffins. But here's the good news. Anyone can learn to think like Janet. You start by not panicking. You build an investing plan that assumes crashes will happen, because they will. And when they do, you don't see them as a sign that it's all over. You see them as a sign that things are on sale. You make a habit of investing consistently. You diversify. You have cash ready, not for emergencies like flat tires, but for opportunities like market dips. Because the truth is, wealth is built slowly, and then all at once when the world hits pause and everyone else freaks out. Billionaires aren't lucky. They're prepared. They read the room. They don't sell their assets, they leverage them. They don't fear crashes, they study them. And when the world is on fire, they show up with a fireproof wallet and a shopping list. That's the game. So, in conclusion, billionaires get richer during market crashes, not because they have magic powers, but because they stay calm. They buy while everyone else is scared, and they use other people's money to do it. They think long-term. They look for opportunities when everyone else sees chaos. And they know that every market meltdown is just another plot twist in the world's most profitable soap opera. You don't have to be rich to play the same game. You just have to stop playing scared. If you want me to make other videos explaining these topics, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.